Greetings all, and welcome to, what are we in, week 6, I think? Okay, so this week we are going to talk about your midterm paper, which I'm sure you are all anxiously awaiting that conversation. I'm a little behind on getting some of the grading back, so I'll be catching up on that during this week. So you have, I don't know, so you have a grading back. I think I did post this last week. I don't remember. It's like I told one of the classes. I can't remember if I told this class. Sent it out. I think with the announcement that last week on Tuesday or Wednesday. It's like I've had an eye infection and had to get my eye cut open, which is really gross. But it got worse afterwards. So it's been a long couple weeks. So it's like I can only look at the screen for a couple of hours and then it gets really messed up. So I'm working on it. I think it's on the mend now. So I will try and get all that back to you during this week. So let's talk about your midterm, which is going to be based off of Candide, but we're still bringing in all of these ideas of enlightenment and the philosophy and everything around it. It's a I don't want to say it's a complicated paper to scare you, because I'm going to try to piece it out as much as I can in discussing it right now. I'm giving you 2 weeks, so even though I'm talking about it right now, and normally we work on a week-to-week basis in the online class, you do have 2 weeks to work on it. So hopefully you're going to be watching this on Monday, so that you get an idea of what the paper involves, and then you have 2 weeks to work on it. So my recommendation is to start piecing it out, start thinking about it, start outlining it, whatever, so that you can start asking me questions if you have them, and maybe get a good draft of it beforehand, so that you could send it through the writing center, who will be more than happy to take a look at your draft, because they are very used to my Candide paper. I already saw Miss Lehman, who works in the writing center, and she came in to talk to Miss Hirsch the other day, and she walked by me and I said, "It's Candide paper semester," and she's like, "Oh no." She was just giving me a hard time, because every spring I do the Candide paper. So they know it's coming. So if anybody needs any help with it, as far as the writing center part of it, right? So some editing help, or some work citation help, that's what they're there for. Now, if you need some help with, is this what you meant? Is this a good? You want my opinion to look at something like your thesis statement? Absolutely email me. I'm happy to always look at thesis statements. In fact, I even prefer that you email me your thesis statement as you're getting ready to roll forward. I'm always happy to give you a green light on a thesis statement, or help you with your thesis statement as you're rolling forward. What I don't do is, I'm not going to look at a rough draft. I don't look at rough drafts. This is a 200 level class. Your rough drafts are your business, or between you and the writing center. But I'm always happy to answer questions or look at something specific, like you're stuck on a specific question, like you're trying to figure out, is this what I meant by the satire piece? Is this what I meant by an issue? Is this what I meant by, a thesis? And absolutely, I'm happy to answer those questions, or look at the sentence that you were thinking about heading up, looking at topic sentences, those very specific things. 100% happy to look at them. You just email it my way, and I will be happy to discuss it or give you advice on it, and help you out with it. All right. So don't feel left in the dark there and sitting at home going, I have no idea what to do with this. Even an outline, if you want to build an outline, I'm happy to look at an outline also. So all of those things you should be working on beginning at this week, while you have no real other work to do in this class. And obviously you have other classes, but in this class, besides starting this paper, the only other thing I posted this week was, which should take you all of 10 minutes, hopefully, because you already finished reading Candide, was I asked you to post on the discussion board just something kind of fun. The dark comedy of Candide, because it's still an online class and I have to do a weekly attendance. So the dark comedy of Candide piece that I posted up here says, now that you're all finished reading Candide, right, and you're working on your midterm this week, we still need to have something for attendance. So what I want you to post here is Voltaire's Candide is often said to be one of the first written examples of dark comedy, which it is meant to be funny in a weird kind of way. Sometimes ha-ha funny, but not always ha-ha funny. Sometimes just messed up, right? So that falls under this idea of dark comedy. Some of the leaflets and some of the versions of the story that went out around its time and after actually had a subtitle underneath it that said Candide, Comedy of the Absurd, right? Because it is absurd. It's just over the top. I think you could see why as you finished reading it. So sometimes it's more entertaining, not laugh out loud funny, because of the over-the-top exaggeration or extremism to make a point, right? It's often brutal or vulgar in this story. The first time I ever had to read Voltaire, I put the book down and was like, what in the heck was that I just read? And why did my teacher make me read that? Because sometimes it's just gross. It's just wrong. But it made an impression. It made a point, which is what he was trying to do, right? Sometimes that's how you get people to pay attention. So sometimes it's just messed up. So what do I want you guys to do? Here, I want you to each state your, and I put it in quotes, favorite, right? That might be pushing it. But your favorite satirical dark comedy moment from the story, right? What one you liked the best if you had to choose one, because I'm making you choose one. That one that stood out to you, how about we put it that way, that made you stop and go, whoa, what? Or laugh out loud, or say to yourself, that was messed up. All right, so something, and why, and did it make a point? Did it make a point? So as always, I'll give you up to 2 extra credit points if you respond to up to 2 other students. That part's not required, right? You don't have to respond to anybody else if you don't want to. The only part that's required is that you post yours. The extra credit part's just extra credit if you want to. It's just kind of a way for us to kind of see what what struck other people, right? Because everybody is different and things strike us all differently. So it's kind of an interesting way to kind of break down Candide. In the class, when I teach Candide in the classroom, we spend a lot of time on Candide, right? Because in a regular class, I would be meeting twice a week, and we would have spent the same amount of weeks doing Candide that you guys did, but we would be in the classroom talking about it. So you can imagine the conversations that we had in the classroom. So I miss that part of it. I miss, that I don't get to sit in with you guys and talk with you about it, because it is a weird story. So this is kind of the best part I could do with that part, is have you guys kind of come out and be like, well, here's what struck me, good, bad, or ugly as it may be. All right, so let's talk about your midterm. So it is, other than what you guys have been doing just on your weeklies, your 2 biggest point bearers, well, you have 3, is your 2 essays, right? Your midterm essay, and at the end of the semester, you'll have a Dracula essay, and then you have a final that kind of goes with your Dracula paper, and the final is just like 5 questions that you answer in short essay. I don't even like the word essay. Short question answers, right? Short answers. Kind of like you have been the journals. We'll say it like that, right? Sort of like you've been answering in the journals. You'll have 5 questions that you'll answer back to me in the same type of format that you have been like the journals. That's what your final is for this class. I give it to you at the beginning of the week. You have to the end of the week to answer the 5 questions, just as if it was a journal, only you have 5 questions instead of 1. That's how your final works for this class. That's worth a chunk of points at the end. And the week before that, your your Dracula paper will be due, which is also worth a lot of points. It's 150 points. And this paper is worth 150 points. Everything else you do in between is worth 10 points to 20 points, depending on what you're doing. Because sometimes if I ask you a more heftier question or something that's built up with multiple questions in it, I give you more than 10 points. It depends on what it is. So that's how we're going in this class. So this will weight heavily into your grade. So definitely work on it early. That's why I'm giving you 2 weeks. And definitely ask me questions if you have them. Don't just kind of sit there and go, well, I hope this is what she wanted. And, get some feedback from the Writing Center or the library, who will help you with, who's always happy to look at your works cited page, right? They're really good about that. So let's take a look at it. I gave you the resources for as far as, here's what the essay instructions are, which is what I'm about to go over, the grading rubric for this paper, which we're also about to go over, and a library database link to help you jump straight to the library databases, which I'll also show you in just a second. All right, so let's look at the directions. That's always helpful to start with. So what is this whole thing about, right? So in Candide, satire is the dominant literary device used to convey the author's attitudes towards social issues, which I think by now, if you guys have finished it, which hopefully you have, then you see that that's very obvious at this point, right? He's using satire to try to shine a light on a whole bunch of different social issues as he sees them, right? So Candide deals with a range of issues. It uses extreme and absurd situations, satire, right, to point out some kind of truth relative to the topic, which is what satire does. So overall objectives that you need to cover in your paper. In this essay, you will explore how Voltaire uses satire to make important points about the social and political issues of the day and discuss why he chose to voice his concerns with satire. It's important that you're able to identify the issues. In this case, you will identify one issue. You should discuss how the character Candide uses the idea of what's best, as in the whole idea of positivism, right? That's the central theme of this whole story. You need to identify that, how it's used in the story. Devote part of the essay to a discussion of the social political climate that spawned the work in the first place. In other words, how did the period of Enlightenment sort of become the background to this story? Why did this create this story in the first place? A controlling feature of this essay should be your ability to illustrate the truth that underlies the satirical elements in this work. So in other words, when people use satire, they do it for a reason, right? Satire is used, even though it's meant to be absurd, over the top, ridiculous, funny, they use it to reveal some kind of truth, right? As a lot of comedy does, right? As long as it's not slapstick. Slapstick doesn't reveal any truths, but any other kind of comedy, high or low usually, especially high in satire and stuff, will be used to reveal a type of truth. So, specifically what to include. All right, so these 2 parts right here will become kind of like your checklist. This was an overview, right? An overview of objectives, but here's kind of more like your checklist here. Discuss how the time period contributed to the work, right? So if you want to start off talking about, once you get past your introduction, if you want to discuss the Enlightenment period, okay, what was part of the Enlightenment, how does the Enlightenment contribute to this work? So we had you had even a journal that you sort of were discussing enlightenment. How did enlightenment, you see enlightenment in there. How does Voltaire, connect to enlightenment? He was a child of the Enlightenment, right? An adult of the Enlightenment. And you could see how he both is a contributor of the Enlightenment and also pushes back to the Enlightenment, right? He likes it and doesn't like it, both in his writings. Discuss the idea of what's best, the whole idea of optimism from the story. What is it? Why was it in here, right? So his whole thing with Pangloss and the whole idea of Leibniz, and right? Why was that even in here? What was his whole problem with that? And again, that sort of reaches back to the Enlightenment piece, which many of you talked about here. So that should be another piece. So if you want to think about this as a paragraph or section, okay? Discuss at least one social issue. So your thesis statement for this whole thing, up in your introduction, is going to be, what is the social issue you're going to choose? So, and you can choose more than one. Here's my only caution. If you choose 2, which is fine, remember that you need to still tell me all of these things about it. So, social issues. So a thesis statement might be something like, in Voltaire's story Candide, one of the social issues he chose to shine a light on through satire was blank, right? Religion, or the problems with religion, or the problems with racism, or the problems with, you could probably pick just about it, sexuality, or the problems with classism. There's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons. It could be big problems like that, right? Or it could be more subtle, specific problems. But think of social issues of the day, right? Poverty, nobility, classism. There's tons. As you read through the whole story, pretty much every social issue you could think of is in there, right? So it would probably be better if you chose one that you could then go into a lot of detail about. If you want to choose 2, which is fine, remember that you then have to sort through later in your essay in this section and talk about all these things. What is the social issue? What are Voltaire's feelings about it that you get through reading this story, right? Not like you're going to go, what is he trying to get across to the reader about it? And how does he do this through satire? So that means you're going to have to dig back through the story and figure, what are the ways that he shined a light on that in the story? How did you get this idea that he felt that this was ridiculous, or he felt that this was being abused, or he thought that this was wrong, or that this was good, or that people were, being unjustly accused, or whatever it was that you chose as a social issue? How did you feel that was put across to you in this story? Okay, through satire. So this is a section. So if you want to use, like I said, more than one, which is totally fine with me, then divide it into 2 paragraphs. One of the social issues was blah blah blah, and then you go through this little list and talk about it. And then your next paragraph would say another social issue that Voltaire discussed in Candide was, and then you talk about these things again. So that's fine, especially if you find yourself running low on word count and you want to add a second social issue. End with an overall discussion of why satire was used in the first place here, all right? That, why not just say it? Why not just, why not just say, this is a problem during this time period, right? This is a good place to bring in a discussion of how during Enlightenment, right? Art, right? How art was looked at, how writing, the whole artifice of art, right? They didn't often use bluntly use reality. They used art in an artistic manner, and think about how you can fold in a discussion of how Swift and Pope used writing also, right? And often satirically. So this might be a good place to fold in those other two stories that we read. Hint, hint, right? Wink, wink, just saying. So, guidelines. You need to have a thesis statement in your introduction, because of course it's an essay, so an essay has an introduction and a conclusion, right? A thesis statement concerning Voltaire's use of satire to prove a point on a specific theme or idea. That is your social issue. Choose one or two, right? So your thesis statement will say, just like I just said, something like in Voltaire's Candide, he uses satire to make a point about to enter social issue here, right? That's all your thesis statement needs to say. You will come back to it in this section right here. You need at least 3 sources from TCL's database, okay, outside of our book. Your book will be included as a 4th resource. You know what? I'm going to change that. You're hearing me saying this. I will go change it on the official one. Oh, I want to do that backwards. Let's make it 2 outside resources, and the actual story of Candide out of our book will be your 3rd, okay? So 2 outside resources from the databases, and your book is your 3rd. So your works cited page should have at least 3 resources on it. One of them is the story of it'll say, Voltaire's Candide from our book, Punchner, blah, 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 anthology, Norton Anthology. So that's one of them. And then your other 2 are going to come from the TCL databases, which we'll look at in just a second. Use of textual evidence. So what does that mean? And outside of our book, also from our book, if you put in there anything like a modest proposal, you can talk about a modest proposal and rape of the lock without necessarily putting it, in your works cited. If you decide to take some specific things from rape of the lock and modest proposal, then you probably should put it in your works cited. But it's still out of our book. So even though you're going to put it in your works cited, and that might add to your works cited, it's not going to take the place of the 2 outside sources that you still need, okay? But you can still put it in your works cited. Use of textual evidence, as in our book. So that is talking about bringing in and discussing and making sure that you fold in at some point, probably down here, satire's use in the first place, probably blending in the modest proposal and rape of the lock, why it's useful during this time period to discuss things. But also, and mostly, the textual evidence is all through this whole thing, that you are over and over again going to show me, examples of stuff from the story, right? How the time period contributed to the work, that can come from the outside sources or the inside sources. Discuss the idea of what's best. That might be some stuff from the inside, because the characters, how they talked about it, versus some of the outside sources, including the Leibniz piece that I posted up for you guys. You can use that as a source also. And what is it, why it's here, and then the inside, as in textual evidence, an issue, especially right here, one social issue that you're choosing, you should be talking about how, what are Voltaire's feelings about it, what is he trying to get across, and how did he do this? This is going to be rife with a discussion of how did the story do this. So there should be a lot of details from the story. In other words, it's really going to show me that you read it and understood it and made those connections, okay? So textual evidence, MLA formatting and citations. I think I have a link to an MLA formatting. If not, it is on our library webpage. I will find a link for you and put it up there for you also. And the library is always happy to help you with the citations as well. But yes, this is a 200 level class. You should definitely be MLA formatting and knowing how to make a works cited page. Works cited page points. You should end up with about 1,000 words by the time you're done with this. If you're a little bit underneath that, let's say 900 to 1,000. I'm okay with that. And then of course you'll submit it to Blackboard. It needs to be as a Word document, in case I have not already said that. Okay, it has to be as a Word document. If it's not a Word document, then I can't open it and I can't grade it. It has to be as a Word document. Okay, make sure you are double, triple, quadruple checking that you have it up there. So in other words, once you submit it, go out and come back in and double check that you have it up there. That is student responsibility, that you have put it up there. It shouldn't be mine that I discover whether or not you put it up there. You need to make sure that you put it up there, okay? Because I know that is a famous student trick of buying time. You don't get to buy extra time. You have 2 weeks. So make sure that you put it up there. You don't want a 0 on something that counts as a huge chunk of your grade for the semester. Okay, so let's look at the grading rubric. It'll look basically like this. I mean, the point breakdown won't change. I might make it a PDF by the time I give it to you, but right now it's still just a Word doc. So you get 20 points are your intro and your conclusion, that you've properly introduced your paper with your thesis statement. Again, if you want me to look at your thesis statement, just email it to me. I'm happy to look at it. 15 points is your ability to pinpoint a concern or a theme. So this would be the part, this is essentially your thesis statement, which I kind of broke out separately. You need to have really been able to hone in on this ability to discuss this theme. Sorry, I didn't mean to start coughing on here. That you could pinpoint something specific, that you weren't just saying, yep, there's some kind of discussion of some stuff that happened, right? Pick some kind of a social problem that you're going to focus on for the piece of the paper. That's worth 15 points. 30 points, which is a huge chunk of the paper, is where you show me how satire was used to make comments on that concern or theme. Okay. Use of outside resources. So that's where you were able to fold in those other pieces and discussions into the rest of the body of your essay. That you included textual evidence, so you were properly able to fold in your the part about well, all the other stuff, like all the specifics from Candide's story itself to show me how satire was used to show that social problem. Also, if you're going to fold in stuff about modest proposal or rape of the lock, whatever, that you were able to, nicely put that in. MLA formatting is 15 points because it should most certainly be formatted, right? And double spaced, all that kind of stuff. Times New Roman 12. And that you have a proper works cited page, MLA proper works cited page, and that you have taken the time to edit this thing and really, really grammar check it. There is no reason that this thing should have a bunch of grammar errors in it at all. All right? Double, triple check it. I shouldn't see a bunch of grammar. It's an essay. This is an official, right, essay. It's your academic essay. So it's not like your journals. There's not going to be any I, right? This is not a journal. Your essays are in third person. So go back into third person. Stay in present tense. when you're talking about literature, you wouldn't say he had done this, he did do this. I mean, you're like, he is. Candide is saying this. Then he does this, right? You're staying in present tense. It feels weird because all these people are long dead, but the fact that you could read the book right now, you could read the book tomorrow, someone else could read it 2 years from now. Literature is always in present tense. So talk about the characters as doing things in present tense. The only thing that would be in past tense is when you're talking about the actual writer, because the writers are dead. So if they are doing something, that already happened. But the literature and the characters inside of the stories is present tense. So present tense, the paper is in present tense, the paper is in third person, and you need to check your grammar, okay? Again, I always stress letting the writing center put their eyes across it. You just need to give them, a few days. So trying to give it to them the day before that it's due, it's not going to happen. So you need to, that's why I'm trying to give you guys enough time to get it going. All right. So that is your Candide paper. That is your midterm for this class. And if you press on the library database link, it will take you here. It will take you here to the database page. And if you're at home and you click on like academic search complete, it will take you guys to a page that's going to ask you to sign in. The sign in is just your TCL student ID, right? So it'll tell you what you need to do to sign in. It's like TCL student ID, and then your password is something like the first letter of your first name plus the last 3 of your social. Once you put that in, it will, and you had clicked this, it will take you here. All right. So you could just type in whatever it is you think you're going to look for. Like we could type in, just to start, we could just type in Candide. I can't read German, so we probably don't want to use that one. Invisibility and possibility, the reuse of Voltaire's Candide in whatever that says. Oh, in Pessa Optimist. Okay, so maybe that would be interesting. I don't know. Ice Age Necropolis. That doesn't sound right. Wow, we have stuff in a lot of weird. Iconographics, novel, nope. Candide, in-text image, nope. Boredom, insignificance, and the death in Voltaire's Candide. There you go. That might be interesting. The Flowers of Evil. Okay. More stuff in weird languages. There's Leibniz in Candide's Voltaire. Making Candide's Paquette. Yes. Oh, Paquette. Okay. Jews and Voltaire's Candide. So if you're going to do, if your social problem that you choose is racism, that might be a good article, right? So you can just kind of scroll through some of these and maybe find some good ones. Candide's Pangloss, Voltaire's tragicomic hero. So, I mean, seriously, there's tons of these. So you can find something on the beginning and ending of Candide. Some of these are not useful. The New Candide, or What I Learned on the Theory Wars. Okay. Romantic emotions. So if you're going to discuss romance in yours, or relationships, or love, if any of those are your social issue, then this may be a good one. Cosmopolitan slaves in the global market. There's another one. So that's a possibility. Time in Candide, which is an issue, right? How much damn time went by in that thing? Tools, funeral ritual. I don't know. That doesn't work. I'm just kind of going through some of these. Can't tell what some of them say. Memories. these. Nope. Here's Catholics on Candide, Catholics and Freemasonry, how fiction disavowed the loyalty oaths. This is a good one, especially if you're going to do religion, right? It's a criticism. So this is a good one. Yep. Okay, so we won't keep scrolling through all these. Des Moines, Iowa, that's weird. Okay, Brown and the Enlightenment, a study of the influence of Voltaire's Candide. There you go. And all I did was type Candide in here. So I've already seen at least 6 articles that are useful for this paper. All right? And I only went through a couple pages. So for sure, you don't have to do a lot of hard searching to find what would be useful for you, okay, to use in here. And think about how you might fold those into your discussion. It depends on what you decide you thought was an interesting social issue. Mind you, there are dozens of them in the book. So what stood out to you? I ask you to choose your own because everybody has their own personal choice of what kind of stuck out to them, either because it entertained you the most or because it was most interesting to you personally or because it made you the most angry. So everybody chooses their own social issue for their own reasons. So I think that makes for a better paper. So there you go. It's up there. I don't have the turn in part yet because I don't want you to turn them in this week by any stretch of the imagination. I want you to work on them this week. You do have the discussion board to turn in this week. And I want you to think about it. I want you to email me if you have questions or problems. I want you to send me a thesis statement if you want me to look at it. I'm happy to look at it and help you with it if you need help with it. Again, if you make an outline, like a simple paper outline, and you want me to see that, I am also happy to look at that and give you green lights or yellow lights with a little bit of help. Whatever you need, I'm happy to help you with it. So don't sit and twiddle your thumbs in the dark with it. That's what I'm here for. That's what the library is there for with the MLA, like works cited stuff. And the Writing Center is there also. And they all work with online students just as much as walk-in students, okay? So make sure you use what tools you have. That's what we're all here for, okay? So let's get cracking on Candide. And then next week, even though you're still working on your paper, next week we move on. And we've left the Enlightenment next week behind and move past it. So let's